Hello students. In this video we are going to take a look at using formulas for the first time in a spreadsheet. And last week we looked at adding text called labels and values into our spreadsheet. We also took a look at the formatting of those things. So moving forward, we're going to assume that you have a working knowledge of how to format values and text in a spreadsheet. And now we're going to actually work on the features of the spreadsheet itself. And in this video we're going to explore formulas. We explored this very quickly in one of the introduction videos. It was my purpose then to show you basically the power of the spreadsheet. So rather than just giving you an idea of the organization of the spreadsheet, putting values and text in different cells, I wanted you to get a glimpse at how powerful the spreadsheet actually is and why it is that so many people use it to manipulate their data. So in this video we're going to actually take a first look at how we actually use or tap into the power of the spreadsheet. I'm going to use this example that I partially used in a prior video. I've added a few things and formatted my values a little bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to explore a calculation that can be done with the spreadsheet. So if you take a look, I have some daily earnings here. Here's my day, here's my earnings. And what I would like to do is calculate a few different things for my spreadsheet. And in the next video, we are going to actually take a look at an even more powerful way to do this. But in order to really gain appreciation for what the spreadsheet does, we're going to start basic. And this isn't just a waste of time. I don't want you to jump right to the next video because this can teach you some very good tools that you might utilize later. So the first thing we're going to do is actually find the total of all of these values. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a label over, let's put it over here, and I'm going to call this total, and I might make it bold. And what I want to do is have the spreadsheet actually calculate the total for me. Rather than adding up all of these values manually, the purpose of the spreadsheet is to get the spreadsheet to do the work for you. However, you have to set up the formula properly. Now, in most spreadsheets, if you would like the spreadsheet to actually perform a calculation rather than display a value, what we're going to do is start with an equal sign. That equal sign, as you can see there, is the first step in building a formula. This tells the spreadsheet that we are about to perform a calculation, and what we put into the cell the spreadsheet will try and use in order to perform a calculation, and it's actually the calculation that it's going to display rather than what is in the cell, what we call the cell formula. What we would like to do is we would like to add up all of these values. Now there's a couple ways that we can do this, and I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit. So if you are quick at picking these things up, you might be able to skip through the video a little bit, but I just want to exaggerate this so you can really see the powerfulness of the spreadsheet. Now the first thing that most people would do if using a calculator is to type out the values directly. So I might say equals and then 14, because I have 14. I could put it in .00. I could also put in the dollar sign, 14, right, $14. And then I would add that, so I'd hit the plus sign, and then I would add the next value, $20, and then plus 1575 plus 3025 plus 4050. Now, if I ask the spreadsheet to perform that calculation, it should be able to perform the mathematical operation of addition and add up all of those values. Let's hit enter and see what we get. Oh no, I have an error. What's the problem? Well, here we see, and I'm using Google Sheets, here I see I have some kind of a parse error. If you're using Excel, you might not have a problem. Now, parse error is simply the computer application's way of telling you that it couldn't break down what you had given it effectively. So let's take a look here. Let's actually try taking out the dollar signs. Perhaps Google Sheets doesn't like the dollar signs. Maybe your spreadsheet doesn't either. And you can see there when I took that out, I was given an actual value. So a rule or a note to make note of course to make note of, but something to make note of for later is that Google Sheets does not like dollar signs in its formulas. Now, of course, because I couldn't include the dollar signs here, you notice my total doesn't have dollar signs in the calculation, and so I would need to format that value as currency. So that's one way to go about it. Now, that's great. The spreadsheet was able to calculate that total for me, and I didn't have to do it myself. But there's a problem. What if one of those values changes? Let's say instead of $15.75, I really earned $16. When I change this value, you'll notice that my calculation down here is not going to change, and it's actually going to be wrong. And the reason why is because I used these constant values in my formula. If I want this to now reflect this new total, then I need to go into my formula and I need to edit it. Now there's a couple ways you can go into a formula to edit it. Most spreadsheets do have a formula bar like you see up here, and you can simply click in there and start editing. So here, instead of $15.75, I'm going to change that to $16. And then when I hit enter, you'll notice I get a new total. Now that's great. However, what would really be nice is if the spreadsheet itself could pick up on the fact that there's a new value there and it does the calculation for me. Well, in fact, the spreadsheet can do that, but we have to instruct it properly. What we did here was we told it to add up these 5 values. And quite frankly, the spreadsheet does not know that these are the same values that are stored in the 5 rows above it. It doesn't know that at all. It just thinks that they're regular values that you want added. If I actually want the spreadsheet to add these values, then what I need to do is specify that to the spreadsheet. And this is something that's very important to understand as you learn spreadsheets, is that instead of actual literal values like this, or constant values, we can use something called a cell reference. So I'm going to delete this because I don't want those literal values. I would like to actually tell the spreadsheet that I want it to go to these particular cells and pick up the value and use those in the calculation. And the easiest way to do that is to name or use the name of the cell. So if I want the spreadsheet to pick up this value right here next to Monday, then what I need to do is refer to that cell by its name. And every cell is named in a spreadsheet by its column and its row. So this value is in C5. So if I type C5, then what you can see here, the spreadsheet picked up on that and it put a little dashed border around C5. That tells the spreadsheet that I want you to go to C5, and whatever value you find there, I want you to use it in my calculation. So then I'm going to add that to the next value. The next value would be this $20 here. But again, I don't want to use the 20. I want to use the name of this cell. I want to use its reference. So I'm going to use the name C6 because it's in C6. So if I type C6, you'll see here that the spreadsheet picked up on that, and now it's going to use that value. And I can continue down the line. Now, many spreadsheets will also provide you with the opportunity of using your mouse in order to select things as well. So if I click here, you'll see that C7 was added to my formula. If I type plus, and then click C8, and then plus, and click C9, then I get my complete formula. When I hit enter, I should get the same value that I had before, but this time now, if I change this value back to 1575, and hit enter, you notice my calculation updates automatically. And that's because I told Excel that whenever any value changes and you're going to update this cell, you're going to use these cell references instead of the actual values. And that's a great power of a spreadsheet. Now, if you've used spreadsheets before, or you have any level of suspicion, you might say to yourself, well, I think there might be an even easier way to go about adding that formula. And you're correct. There is an even easier way to get this total value of all of these things. But that's a topic that we're going to see in our next video. Let's take a look at another formula that we can add. This time, instead of the total, I want the average. How much did I earn on average each day? That's a legitimate question. Well, how would I set that up? Well, in order to calculate the average, we need to perform some mathematical calculations. The first is we need the sum of all the values that we are looking to find the average of. And fortunately, we just learned how to do that. So we took a look at this formula here, and if you take a look at it, we see the formula. Now I could do one of two things. I could either copy this formula and use it in this formula, or I could actually just use this cell in my formula. And that's actually what I'm going to do. So if I type equals sign to tell the spreadsheet that I'm going to perform a calculation, I could select C10, and I don't know if you noticed that, but I actually didn't even move my mouse or enter C10 on my keyboard. I just hit the up arrow, and that kind of threw the active cell over to C10, and my spreadsheet picked up on the fact that I wanted to use C10. Rather than repeating that whole formula that I used for C10, I might as well just use C10, because whatever that value is going to be the sum or the total of all of those daily earnings. So then the question would be, what do I do next? Well, in order to find an average, we need to take that total and we need to divide by the number of values. And here we have 5 values, but how do we enter a division operation? Well, on the computer, and many of you may be familiar with this because of your graphing calculators, the division symbol is the slash. It's found on your numeric keypad. If you have a keyboard with a numeric keypad on the right, you'll notice it's right above the 8 for the most part. It's also the slash that is underneath the question mark on your keyboard. So that's the division symbol. And here what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 5. So what we're telling the spreadsheet to do is to take C10, whatever it is at the time, and divide it by 5, and that should give me my average. Let's take a look there. We see I have $24.1. And if I wanted to format this appropriately as currency, I could do that. I could also bold it if I want. So that's my average daily earning. So those are 2 different formulas that I see there. You'll notice that Excel does understand mathematical operations. It understands addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The addition sign is fairly straightforward. The subtraction sign is fairly straightforward as well. The division sign, as we see here, is the slash, but we also have the multiplication sign, which is the asterisk. So if you ever need to use multiplication in a calculation, you can use the asterisk. And that kind of summarizes how to build a formula. As you get going with spreadsheets and your spreadsheets involve more complex calculations, perhaps you're doing a physics lab or you're recording a lot of different entries for currency, accounting type values, you may want to build more and more complex or even simple formulas, and now you know how to get started. Again, in the next video we're going to actually take a look at another way to get some totals, and this is using what are known as functions. So you can stop here, and I will see you in the next video.